Okay, how's everyone this afternoon?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Any questions about anything? I'm sorry we're not meeting in person. I did get tested this afternoon, and we'll find out tomorrow if we can meet again. So hope you are doing well. Any questions about anything? Okay, so we've been talking about, what have we been talking about?
We've been talking about Ben Franklin.
Okay, good. That's a good start. And yes, Chloe.
Sorry. We had been going over part one a lot.
Okay, good. Had we come to any conclusions about part one?
We also talked about his schedule, like his daily schedule.
Right, his daily schedule. And good, this is good. I mean, I'm not contradicting anything so far. I'm just trying to figure out where we are and where we need to go with this discussion of Franklin, his daily schedule, what else is going on in his life.
We talked about the governor sponsoring him and him making Ben ask his father for money.
That's a good one. The governor sends him up to Boston to see if his father will loan some money to start the printing office. Yep, that's good. Good. And so far, no one has said anything wrong. So I'm not saying we're going to keep going until, and so, okay. Good. And anything else about him? What kind of sense do we get of this guy so far, having now spent a couple of weeks dredging up stuff from his autobiography? How would we characterize Franklin if someone were to stop you on the street and say, what's the deal? Let's suppose you're standing in front of Franklin's statue and someone says, who is this guy? What can you tell us now that you would not have known 3 weeks ago? Yes, Andre.
Yeah, so I guess if I were to tell someone, describe Ben Franklin, I would mention that he was a man that, underwent a lot of changes and a lot of tribulations in his life. He had a lot of ideas and like philosophies that changed as he grew up.
Okay, so that's good. That's a good, apt way of putting it. What are some of the things that he changed? Yes, Chloe, you have your hand up.
Oh, I mean, I guess going off of that, like he well, he moved a lot. Like he went to New York and then to Philly and then to London and then to Philly and he went all over the place. But something that I was gonna say is that I feel like he's a bit full of himself. Like he speaks very highly of himself very often.
He does. Okay, yeah. So he is a guy who is full of himself, and then and he does travel a lot. I mean, you hit two things. Does he have a legitimate reason for being full of himself, do you think? Or do you think that's, I mean, he mentions humility being something he has to work on because, he does admit to being full of himself. So, yes, I'm not going to dispute that. Does he try to hide the fact? Yes, Tyler.
I guess to add on to what Chloe was saying, I think she was saying like he's a little like full of himself, but I think like we could say like that is because like he's done a lot of things I think not a lot of people learn about. Like there's a lot more to this guy than just like being one of the founding fathers.
Okay, like what are some of the things if someone said, hey, I know he's a founding father, what else?
I think like the swimming one is probably the biggest thing that comes to mind for me.
Okay.
Or like the fact that he was a printer or that he was kind of just like, he was a very like multi-talented guy.
Okay, he is multi-talented. And I mean, there's not to dispute. I think Chloe is absolutely right. Okay, so and we'll come back to that. But then, yes, Chloe, you have more to say.
I mean, a reason that like he definitely has stuff to back up that he's full of himself. Like he is very intelligent. Um, like he was very good in school. And just in general, he is very witty with his conversation. So like yeah, he is full of himself, but like at least he's not stupid and full of himself.
Well, that's true, yeah. And, as for, he does really try to, I mean, appearance is an important thing. And so he tries to give the appearance of not being full of himself. That is putting on the humble doubter, or he says, if not actually achieving humility, at least giving the perception that he's a humble person, which is not an easy thing to pull off if you are full of yourself legitimately or not. I don't know if any of you have ever tried it, but fighting against that tendency some people have to show they're better than everyone else. And I'm not going to ask anyone, put up your hand if you think you're better than everyone else, because I know you're a group that does try to strive for humility and not being full of yourselves. Unlike, so anyway, that's a good thing to remember. So we know, okay, so he travels a lot, swims, and Andre was beginning to say that he goes through a lot of changes, does a lot of things. So what are some of the changes he experiences in these first, 24 years? Since you all are still talking about part one, where he gets up to the age of 24, which is slightly older than most of you are now, but not, a lot older. And thinking about what he has done in those 24 years, I mean, I had not done any of this before I was 24, but so he's writing this memoir, which could be the finished book. I mean, I'm wondering how many of you are going to get beyond age 24 of Franklin before he does any of the things he's known for, like being a founding father, which is, or the whole electricity thing. And, so apparently he thought there was enough in these years to tell this story. And then anything else anyone thinks of when they're now thinking of Franklin after our first 3 weeks of a deep yes, Andre.
Yeah, I was gonna mention like I feel that Ben Franklin he kind of became like the first person to like achieve achieve like the so-called American dream where you know like at the age around like 14, 16, drops out of school
Mm-hmm.
and somehow he worked his way up and actually accomplished all these things. So
Yeah. He's been called, I'm still listening. I'm just going to put down my shades. He's been called the first American because he does. It's exactly what Andre said. He achieves what becomes known as the American dream, and is also the idea of a self-made man. That is, he comes from humble beginnings, and through hard work and persistence, he makes himself into the most successful man of his era, which not saying the American dream requires you to be the most successful person of your era, but simply that is part being achieving this kind of success is something that is what does set him apart. And there are other successful people in the 18th century and their lives well worth studying. There also are failures. And sometimes we learn more from failures than from successes. But in the case of Franklin, he's really showing you how you can do the same thing. Good. And so we've gotten a bit out of this. And then last time, or I guess it was last week when we were together, we started talking about his list of virtues. See, we talked about his schedule, the daily schedule where everything was set. So you're not going to waste any time, but also tied in with that were his 13 virtues. That is, he had this project of achieving moral perfection, understanding that there are vices that prevent you from achieving things. And if you could eliminate them, then you could lead a virtuous life. And we talked a little, we actually read the list of his virtues and started talking about what you see as virtues. And what are his virtues? Emma.
They're temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility.
Yes, very good. Okay, so temperance, eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation, I guess you see, and it's not don't drink at all, and it's not don't eat at all, but it is to avoid extremes, drink not to elevation. And so it's not an absolute, but it's a moderation. And all of these things really are things in moderation. And by the way, we did begin to talk about what virtues you might put on a list, or what are virtues, and yours were much different from his, and I think it indicated you're probably better people. These are very practical things, and you can see that, silence, is that a virtue? I think right now the fact that no one is saying anything indicates that you feel very strongly that it is a virtue, and you're observing it, which is a good thing, because you're not going to speak not, but what then may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. So that's why you're wondering how you happen to stumble into this particular meeting where it seems like that's all we have is trifling conversation. Is that a virtue? Yes, Mitchell.
Yeah, I would say it is, just for like the main fact that some people talk a lot more than others, and sometimes that talking could get them into certain situations that could have been avoided if they haven't said as much. So I would say, yeah, it is a virtue to not talk as much, because sometimes for some people that could be more difficult than others.
Well, that's very true. I think by nature, Franklin was, I don't know, again, it's hard to tell, knowing what we know about Franklin as people observed him later on and what he is saying here, if the character he has later is a natural thing or if it's something he really worked at. Because there are all kinds of accounts of people who had met Franklin, had dinner with Franklin, and if he is in a group, he never says anything. And you read about some of the people he met with and think, okay, here is a group, and Franklin's not the one who does all of the talking. That is, he learns this, he develops this tactic of not speaking, which can be a very effective one. Thomas Jefferson later said that the two most influential people he ever saw in a legislative chamber were Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, and neither one really said much. They didn't have to, but people did listen when they did speak. So that's a good thing. Frugality, make no expense but to do good to others or yourself, i.e. waste nothing. Is that a virtue? Not to waste stuff? Tyler's saying yes, he agrees with that one. I'm just gonna, okay. Are there other codes of virtues anyone is familiar with? Any lists of things you should do, should not do? Yes, Chloe.
I'm taking a class right now for philosophy, and it's called The Good Life.
Yes.
And right now we're going over virtues and Aristotle's point of view and opinion on virtues, and there's a lot of different things that you can focus on, but kind of like how you were saying, like the mean or kind of like the middle point is what is virtuous. So like with anger, for example, there are situations which you should be angry in, and there's situations where you shouldn't, and there's like a spectrum, and how he says it is like the middle point is patience, and then I forget what the extremes are, but
yeah,
like the excess and deficiency. But we were just talking a lot about that in my other class, so
That's
I just
good.
feel like it relates.
It does. It absolutely relates. And I would like to hear more about how, if is anything in this based on Aristotle and this idea of the mean, because Franklin does mention Stoicism as another philosophy with which he is familiar. And he says later on that he looks through all kinds of ethical codes and moral codes. So what he's trying to get at are the most important ones. But you can see this in moderation, avoid extremes and forbear resenting injuries as much as you think they deserve. And in tranquility, be not disturbed at trifles or accidents common or unavoidable. So you're not really getting yourself angry about things, you're moderating yourself. And so this is very much an Aristotelian point of view. Anyone else know of any good moral codes? Yes, Tyler.
I was gonna say the samurai, they had the Bushido code, which is like their own moral code.
Okay, and what is that?
It was integrity, respect, courage, honor, honesty, loyalty, and I think compassion.
Okay, good. How many are there in the list?
7.
7. Okay, the 7 code, the 7. Okay, that makes sense. 7 is often a cardinal number. Chloe, do you recall if Aristotle had a number to the virtues?
No, like that he gave like a list of them, and for a project that we're doing, we're focusing on like 7. But there were more. I think there might have been like 12.
Okay.
Or maybe 10. But the ones that we have are like fear and confidence, so like the extremes, pleasure and pain,
Yeah.
getting and spending, anger, self-expression, and conversation and social conduct. So those are ours that we're focusing on from Aristotle.
Okay, good. Anyone else know of any moral, ethical codes? Yes, Andre.
So I guess in Buddhism, they have something called the Eightfold Path to like enlightenment. And I guess they include so they're called right view, right intention, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and then right samadhi. I don't know if I'm butchering that pronunciation, but yeah, they have that leads to like I guess what they call enlightenment.
Yeah, that is the idea. It leads to enlightenment when to extinguishing the soul, because the soul is this troublesome thing. But I'm wondering, how do you know what is the right path or right conduct? Does it explain what is the right conduct, right view, right path?
So yeah, so I don't know, because like I learned this in history class in high school, and I guess they mentioned that when it comes to right conduct, it just means that you don't perform or do any actions that's considered like sinful, like killing or just I don't know, maybe like sexual acts or anything that involves desires.
Okay, so desire is the big thing for Buddhism, to limit them. And that's very similar to what Franklin is doing here. These things all are about, many of them are about desires. Some of them are not. Industry, I'm not quite, well, I guess laziness is the opposite of that. Yeah, but you can see similarity here. And for Buddha, the idea is to achieve this enlightenment, to extinguish the soul. And that's, anyone know what that period, what is called when you've extinguished the soul, what it is you've reached? Yes, Mitchell.
Is it enlightenment?
Well, it is enlightenment. There's another word for it. Yes, Tyler.
Is it nirvana?
It is nirvana, yes. So yeah, so that's what you're trying to achieve. It's kind of well, I see it as an interesting thing, but it may not be. No one's mentioned though the 10. Yes, Mitchell.
Yeah, I was just about to say the 10 Commandments.
10 Commandments. Okay, so what do they say?
I mean, I don't remember all of them, but like I know one's like love thy neighbor. I honestly don't really remember.
Yeah, so that's not really one of the 10 Commandments. That's the New Testament rephrasing what had been. That's the golden rule. I give you credit, A, for knowing that there are 10 Commandments, and that B, love thy neighbor is an important precept. Where in Franklin's list is love thy neighbor as thyself? considering, we've talked about Aristotle, we've talked about Buddha and the samurai, considering that Franklin comes out of a very Calvinistic Christian tradition, it's to me striking that his list isn't based on the same Christian ethics he had learned as a boy growing up in Boston, but instead it is something else. And give the God credit on Mount Sinai for sending Moses down with just 10. I mean, Franklin has 13 virtues, and the Christian code is based on 10 and then modified to 1. So that's makes it, for me, a little perplexing how this squares with that. I mean, we can see the connection with Aristotle and with samurai and with Buddha, less so with the 10 Commandments. I guess in this, there's nothing about doing no murder or, well, let's see, sincerity. There is a commandment about bearing false witness, right? What does it say? How are the 10 Commandments phrased? What's the phrasing? Again, it's unfair since Mitchell seems to be the only one familiar with them and now demanding. Yes, Tyler.
Is it thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor?
Yeah, it's thou shalt not. It's thou shalt or thou shalt not. So it's pretty clear. Do this, don't do this. Franklin's is a little different. Since there's sincerity, it's use no hurtful deceit. Think in, so that's interesting. It doesn't say use no deceit, but no hurtful deceit, which it's a good thing. It's not exactly an imperative. And so I'm also not sure how order and resolution fit in with the 10 Commandments or necessarily with the Aristotle's code. And Franklin does say order is something he has a lot of trouble with. And I'm not quite sure that's a moral virtue so much as it is something that will be very beneficial. Now, Franklin sees that the appearance of virtues is an important thing. And he sees through all of his life, he is trying to achieve this appearance of something while he might not actually have it. He sees that that's actually a beneficial thing. And he does say when he is in France that if the rascals only knew the advantages of virtue, they would become honest through sheer rascality. That is, you can develop the appearance of something without actually having it, and that is going to be quite beneficial to you, which to me makes it a really an interesting project. And then, as I said, he does develop this plan for every week. He will work on one of the virtues and keep track of how well he has done it. Every day he marks on his chart, whether he committed one of these 13, whether he went against one of these 13 virtues. So he's going to stress every week one of them, but then also note any others. So when the only page he lists is temperance, and he manages to achieve temperance that week, but he has trouble with silence and order, resolution, frugality, and industry. And the others he also seems to have had no problem with. So he's hoping to have a week where he doesn't have any of these blotches on the ledger. And so he tries this for a while, doesn't really succeed, but he sees that actually the trying of it was beneficial. He doesn't scrap the whole thing because it's a difficult undertaking, but he realizes the trying of it actually made him a better person. And I don't know, I can't disagree that doing these things might make you a better person. It should, to use no hurtful deceit, and to, silence being a good thing, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, etc. They are, though, really calculated to make you succeed. And, you're not wasting money. You're not having needless arguments because you talk too much, other things. So I'm thinking that it might be beneficial for us to break into small groups and have people come up with lists of virtues And then we can come back and see what kind of a list we have. So I'll make us into small groups and you'll have some, 10, 15 minutes to work out what you see as the important virtues. I was going to say, 3 or 4 per group, and then we can see how many share the same ones, or if you everyone, how many do you want to do? How many virtues should there be on a list? You want a reasonable list. You don't want 200 virtues because then that would be almost impossible to achieve. Try to condense them down, figuring out what are the important virtues and how, and again, have a tagline the way Franklin does so you'll understand what this is about. Do you understand what we're doing? Okay. So I'll see about making you into some breakout rooms and Okay, so, good. What did we learn as a result of? Let's see, why don't we start with, let's see, Aaron, Gordon, Suchi, you were in group one. What are your virtues?
So we came up with individuality, ambition, temperance, patience, respect, justice, and truth.
Respect, justice, and truth. Okay, that's a big list. What do you mean by individuality as a virtue?
I'll let Sushi speak to that one.
Yeah, so like we were just looking for ones that we haven't really seen before. And I saw that one and I thought it worked well because I think in this like generation, it's good to not conform and follow things without feeling that you should follow them and knowing what you're following. Like it's good to have your own mind.
Okay. Anyone else? I mean, it doesn't, and not necessarily from group one. What do others think of the list? Is this, anyone wish you had said that or, okay. And then ambition, that's an interesting one. What do you mean by ambition as a virtue? Because I know a lot of ambitious people and I usually often don't think of them as particularly moral or ethical.
I mean, I just thought that it's good to have a drive for something and to feel passionate about whether it's like your line of work or like what you're studying.
Okay.
It makes for like a better society if people like what they do and feel passionate.
Yeah, I can see liking what they do, but feel passionate about it. I mean, after our discussion about Aristotle and being moderate, then, you know, let me just say, I'm not questioning these as moral virtues, but I do think you three are going places with individuality, ambition, respect, justice. I mean, that's good. Good. Okay. Good. Let's see, Joanna, Madison, Tyler, what were your virtues?
Sure. I think it's really hard to follow up after that group because I thought they did such a good job. But our three were kindness, truthfulness, and boldness.
What do you mean by boldness? I can understand the others.
Sure.
What do you mean by that?
Joanna was the one who suggested this, so she wants to explain.
Actually, it was kind of the same idea as individuality. It was just like, face your fears, be willing to like go after your ideas.
Okay. Okay. And kindness, anything more to say about kindness than just what it seems?
We kind of just thought of like the golden rule, basically.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to question that. Good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Okay, it's because it's one that I think should be on the list. Okay. Good. Let's see, Cameron, Chloe, Rose, what were your virtues?
We said communication, understanding, and self-awareness.
Okay. Can you explain what you mean by, well, why don't we start with self-awareness, because that is an interesting one.
For self-awareness, we basically just said like taking accountability in general, like recognizing your mistakes and being willing to like learn from the experiences you have in your life and just being like aware of what you believe as a person or what actions you're like, going to take on in life.
Okay. Department dedicated to communication. First time I've heard them put
We were getting a little bit of feedback. We couldn't really hear you.
What about communication?
Oh,
How's that?
Chloe, you can talk about it.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were saying anything. I couldn't tell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
Communication was my
really bad.
problem then.
Yeah. Open and honest communication is one that I like particularly, I guess, pointed out. And we just kind of said that it's more of like clarification of like wants, needs, and expectations in relationships. So whether that be what is expected of like students for a professor, or kind of what you want in a friendship with someone, like how often you want to hang out with people and things like that, and just honestly keeping the conversation open so it avoids conflicts. Like being able to speak clearly and communicate effectively is a very virtuous thing, I feel.
Okay, the rest of you agree? Okay, good. Let's see, how about, let's see, Andre, Brittany, Emma, what did you think of?
Well, we came up with honesty, loyalty, selflessness, determination, morality, patience, and karma.
Okay, what do you mean by karma?
Well, there's two types of karma, good karma, bad karma. So you want to do good things in life so that you get good karma and stay away from the bad karma. And also just be aware that people who do the wrong thing will receive bad karma in the end, and you'll receive good karma.
Well, what exactly is it though? You said there's good and bad, but I don't think you've really explained what it is.
I don't know, just kind of like good things happen in your life. Like maybe, I don't know, you receive like a job promotion, just kind of things that like happen in your daily life that kind of seem like rewards or like, I don't know.
Okay,
really-
so like the rewards, Chloe, can you?
When I think of karma, I kind of think of energy that you put out. So if you put out like positive vibes and like positive energy and you try to do the right thing when you can, I kind of associate that with then hopefully receiving good karma, versus if you put out bad energy, like if you're very negative and mean to people, then you might receive bad karma. That's kind of what I associate karma with, is like the energy and attitude that you have and you put out into the world.
Brittany, is that agree with what you're seeing karma as? That it's the energy you put out as opposed to?
Sort of. I see karma in more of like a physical aspect, like what you do, less than energy. But I do think it is part energy. I think it's more of the actions you do and the actions you receive.
Okay, so energy is kind of a vague thing. To do actions though, you need energy. So I can see what you're saying. I'm not quite sure how you master it though. I mean, it does seem like I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm not disputing that that's a good thing. Honesty, loyalty, patience, and then what were some of the others that you were speaking very quickly? I'm not faulting you for that.
We said selflessness, determination, patience, morality.
Okay, good. What do you mean by determination?
I think Andre was the one that brought that one up, if he wants to talk
Yes.
about it.
Yeah, so wait, I'm sorry, like wait, what was the one I brought up for?
Determination.
Yeah, so determination. I guess for me, I brought it up because, in life, when we attempt to do things, at least, give it an effort, whether you succeed or not, So I just thought, by exemplifying that, a good virtue.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, anything else? Any of the others you want to speak to or explain to us, or anyone else want to have something explained? I shouldn't be the only one. It sounds like I dispute everyone's moral code when I'm just trying to understand them. Okay, let's see, Anna, Sydney, Victor,
The virtues that we listed were forgiveness, generosity, sympathy, and empathy.
very good. So what do you mean by sympathy and empathy?
Just being understanding and considerate of other people, and realizing that not everybody's had the same like life experiences as you have, and that you need to just be aware of that. And also having like feeling for people when they're going through something troubling to them. And just because it's like not troubling to you doesn't mean it can't be for somebody else, I guess.
Good way of putting it, yes. And generosity?
We had generosity because of the like we want to help people in the world and like give them what we can, and like the things that we give them don't always have to be materialistic. They could be more like emotional, or just time and energy, or just our support.
Okay, that makes sense. Very good. And forgiveness, that was also a good one on your list.
Yeah, so like letting go of things can be kind of a freeing thing, I think. And also sometimes holding grudges just does more harm than good to you. It can be kind of an exhausting thing to keep.
Yeah, that's true. Very good. Okay, good. And let's see, Katie, Kayla, and Mitchell, what did you have for us? Or for your moral virtues?
So the virtues we had were the first one was patience, as in let things happen as they happen and keep moving forward. Second one is integrity, as in like stand for what you believe in. Then we had kindness, treat others with respect, no matter what differences there may be. And then the third one was kind of based off the cleanliness one of Ben Franklin. It's just like keep mind, body, and soul clean.
Okay, so you like the cleanliness one that he had. Okay. Why was that one? I mean, why did you pick up on that one as something
So for that one specifically, first, just jokingly, we were kind of talking about it. Like, yeah, we like that one. Nobody likes anyone who's dirty or smelly. But then again, we looked at it and like realized that cleanliness actually could go and mean a lot deeper than just like physically being clean. So cleanliness in the sense of mind, body, and soul, uh, like mental health wise, I guess, like everything's good, and just like doing things to make sure that just aren't, I don't know, I guess like corrupting or something like that.
Okay, good. How does that go with the sympathy and empathy that the last group was talking about, that Anna, Sydney, and Victor were seeing? I mean, it seems like you're less sympathetic than they are if you see cleanliness as. I'm not
Like,
disparaging it.
like
I'm all
less
for it.
sympathetic towards others if
Yes.
you're seeking to be clean yourself. I mean, yeah, I guess that could be like viewed in that way, but also if I guess like this is just kind of like what I think.
Okay.
If you think you're truly like clean in mind, body, and soul, I think that would put you at your full potential to help others the best way you possibly could.
Okay, that makes sense. Good. Anyone else have anything they wanted to offer? These are really very good lists, and I think if we went through, we could probably find a lot of commonality or things that are on all of them. And so I'm thinking it's certainly one thing to come up with a list of nice things. It's another one to actually try to live them. So why don't we try to do what Franklin did? That is, take your list and then over the next week, just see how well you do with these virtues that you have come up with. And you're not going to get graded on this by me, but just, I don't even think I should look at them, but just to see how well you keep to these and just see for yourself how easy it is, how difficult it is to try to do one thing as opposed to the other. I mean, you've all identified things that are important and will be, beneficial to you and to people you're around. Really, it's an admirable set of lists or ideas that you've brought here, and to just see how well you can do over the next week with living these things out. Just at the end of the day, mark, okay, I did this, didn't do this. And see, he mentions this in the book about how difficult it is as he puts this order together. And he finds that, as a number of you said, as I was talking to you in your groups, that there's a lot of overlapping among them. And, so he sees his intention was to acquire the habitude of all these virtues. I judged it would be well not to distract my attention by attempting the whole at once, but to fix on one of them at a time. And then when I was master of that, then proceed to another, and so on. And so he saw temperance was the first, because with that he would be better able to achieve the next, as it tends to procure that coolness and clearness of head which is so necessary where constant vigilance was to be kept up and guard maintained against the unremitting attraction of ancient habits and the force of perpetual temptations. Then silence would be more easy, and my desire being to gain knowledge at the same time that I improved in virtue, considering that in conversation it was obtained rather by the use of the ears than of the tongue. Therefore, wishing to break a habit I was getting into of prattling, punning, and joking, so which only made me acceptable to trifling company, I gave silence the second place. This and next order I expected would allow me more time for attending my project and studies, resolution once become habitual, and so on. So he sees this about how each one leads to another, and he makes it up his little book with these virtues, and he has his maxims that he draws from Addison's Cato. Joseph Addison was an 18th century writer, and Cato is a play about an ancient Roman. Cato is actually the favorite play of most of the founders of the American Republic. George Washington could quote extensively from Cato, and then Cicero, and then from the Proverbs of Solomon. And then he has this prayer he has to powerful goodness. And then the story he tells as he comes up with this list of precepts, and every day he will note which ones he's managed and which ones he hasn't. And let's see, he draws the lines with a black pencil, and then he could wipe them out with a wet sponge. And after a while, I went through one course only in a year. Afterwards, only one in several years, till at length I omitted them entirely, being employed in voyages and business abroad with a multiplicity of affairs that interfered, but I always carried my little book with me. So he has this book, and he can erase the pages or erase the marks so he can start over again. Okay. Like the man who, in buying an axe of a smith, my neighbor, consented, he desired to have the whole of its surface as bright as the edge. The smith consented to grind it. So an axe has a sharp edge. And if you've ever noticed a knife or an axe, the edge, which is sharp, is very shiny. And then the rest is not so. Okay, so this guy wants the whole surface to be as shiny as the edge. So the smith consented to grind it bright for him if he would turn the wheel. You have a grinding wheel, and then you have the axe on the wheel to take out all of the rust spots. He turned while the smith pressed the broad face of the axe hard and heavily on the stone, which made the turning of it very fatiguing. The man came every now and then from the wheel to see how the work went on, and at length would take his axe, as it said he would take his axe as it was without further grinding. No, says the smith, turn on, we'll have it bright by and by, yet it's only speckled. Yes, says the man, but I think I like the speckled axe best. So he sees how difficult it is to erase these things, and so will consent to have some of these speckles. So we'll see how we do with, setting out what are the moral virtues and how well we can achieve them. Okay? Good. Any questions? Any thoughts? Yes, Annalise.
It's not really about the virtues, but when is our prose from the poem that we wrote do?
How about the end of next week?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The poems are good, by the way, as well as the plays people have written. So I'm a little reluctant to tell you to put the poems back into prose because it's probably an improvement to have them put into poetry. So yes, that'll be the end of next week. Other questions on things you're doing?
For us that did the scenes, do you want us to like make changes to the one we already uploaded or do like a second scene?
That's a good question. If you want to write a second scene, you may. I haven't yet written comments on them to suggest things you might change, but I think, what were you thinking, Brittany?
I was just asking for
You're asking. Okay, getting back to communication being a virtue, and I think that was the major thing. You want to know what to expect. Yeah, I know. I think you're pretty much done with the plays, with the scenes. If you want to make improvements, you may, but I'm happy with them. So, okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? For those of you who are living downtown, between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. every evening at the Hat Shell, they have a sound and light show every 20 minutes, which would be a fun thing to go to. And has anyone seen this? Okay, so it's worth taking a walk over to the Esplanade between 5 and 9 and seeing there's an app you can put on your phone so you can hear the music that goes along with this. It's about a 10, 15, 20 minute sound and light show. So it's not how you'll spend the evening, but it's a good diversion. I know though, many of you are taking up Franklin's idea of avoiding diversions and things. You'd rather be spending that time working hard, which is a good thing, particularly those. Yeah. So, okay. So that's it. I'll see you next Tuesday, hopefully in the Samia building, and have a good weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe. Be careful. Study hard. Keep developing the habitude of virtue, the appearance of virtue, and you'll all be better people for it. Okay?
Bye, Professor. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a
Take
good
care.
weekend.
Good to see you.
Thank you.